For another year, the Big 12 is loaded when it comes to the quarterback position. Avery Johnson, Drew Mestemaker is just two of them. And for another year, it's going to be a very tough task to get to Arlington.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into this Locked On College Crossover of Locked On Kansas State and Locked On Oklahoma State. Christian Rauh, Cody Stovall here, and we are bringing you the action. Thank you so much for making either one of our shows your first listen of the day, and we really appreciate you stopping by. Cody, this has been a fun offseason for both of us. Brand new head coaches. You have a brand new quarterback. Your roster is absolutely brand new, going from mean green to cowboy orange for the most of the roster. It's a really interesting time out in Stillwater. Many believe you're going to be the wild card of the conference, and I think a lot of that has to do with Drew Mestemaker as your quarterback. On the flip side, Avery Johnson comes for his final season. He becomes one of the veterans in the conference. It's wild just to think that we were just a few years away from him rushing for 5 touchdowns against Texas Tech as a freshman, right? Well, Collin Klein's back. He's got some interesting stuff to talk about and perform. We'll see who is the better quarterback when it's all said and done. We're not going to actually do rankings today. Well, let's not do that. Let's save that for another day because rankings, there's just way too many good quarterbacks in the Big 12, and I don't think it'd be fair to do that in February. But let's talk about these two quarterbacks. I think that's also fun to do. Drew Mestemaker is going to be very fun to watch in Oklahoma State next year.
Yeah, brother, man, it's a quarterback-driven league, and it's nice that we kind of get to go back to that, right? Even before, I don't know, you could say that this last couple of rounds of big-time quarterbacks, you can go back to the Mason Rudolphs and the Baker Mayfields and the Landry Joneses and the Sam Bradfords. This has always, the Chase Daniels, this has always been a quarterback-driven league, and we were doing things offensively that the SEC used to make fun of. And now they're doing those things offensively, and we're still known as typically the quarterback-driven league. So it's at least exciting, I'll say, from an Oklahoma State perspective. We're back in this conversation. It's been a while, Christian, since we can even throw a shoe into the ring of the QB conversation, because as much as Allen Crawdaddy Bowman did for Oklahoma State and how much we'll remember 2023, it wasn't like, you know, they carried themselves with that swagger of, we know we're going to win. I just did an episode today. When you see these defensive players in their most recent press conferences, they're grinning ear to ear when you bring up Drew Mestemaker, because when you know you got a dude on the sideline that carries that swagger and can put up 50 points, you're going to play a lot more freely. You're going to play more aggressively. You're going to take more chances. So our defense is starting to discuss how having a dude at QB changes everything, and we're finally back in this conversation. We got another Mason Rudolph on our hands, baby, and it feels so good.
You can't talk about old, great Big 12 quarterbacks and just leave it over to Oklahoma State and like other old Big 12 schools and not talk about Michael Bishop and not talk about Collin Klein. I'm sorry, those names have to be.
I left off Collin Klein for a reason, sir. All right.
They have to be involved in that,
because
in that
I'll tell you why I didn't include Collin Klein.
Let's hear
it. It makes me nervous that Collin Klein has Avery Johnson at quarterback, who is a pretty close replica to Marcel Reed with potentially a better arm. I'll just admit it, man. I think you guys have the firepower to keep everybody in the Big 12 on their toes. I'm excited to come to the game in Manhattan to link up, but I'm not excited about how good K-State could potentially be with Collin Klein having an Avery Johnson kind of guy. Could have Avery gone in the portal for sure, but I would assume that the millisecond Collin Klein was named as a coach, Avery Johnson and his family, his camp, his agent, everybody said, bro, look what he did with Marcel Reed. That is exactly what he can do with you, and we can give you more toys than he had at K-State in the backfield. Yeah, it's crazy, bro.
Kansas State quarterback coach Christian Ellsworth said that he can truly change the game every single play when speaking about Avery Johnson. He said he's one of the most gifted players in the country. I think that's true if he has the weapons. Look, I wasn't the only one. Lockdown Kansas State wasn't the only one that was calling Avery Johnson a dark horse Heisman candidate at the beginning of the season. That all changed when, of course, you know, things just didn't go their way. And I do blame a little bit of the play calling, but of course he wasn't perfect on the field. But if he has the right fit, and I think if he has the right weapons as well, which I do think they are probably the best that he's ever had since being at Kansas State. I really like the direction that Kansas State's in. I would love for you to maybe expand a little more on that. What makes you think that Colin Klein can do the same thing, or if not more, with Avery Johnson than he did with Marcel Reed and get them to the college football playoffs last year for Texas A&M?
Well, probably because you stole a running back out of Oklahoma State that had over 600 yards rushing in just like 8 games, over 5 yards per carry. You also go get that big body bruising beast out of Oregon, number 22, that everybody in the country got to see. Isn't it crazy that Oregon got depleted in the running back room and they put in RB number 4, and he is absolutely destroying people? You and I talked a little bit about Harris off the air. Do you remember my comp for Harris and what he looks like to me? And again, why I'm a little worried about that trip to Manhattan in Kansas.
You said Carson, didn't you?
Chris Carson, bro. That Harris got an opportunity and he made the most of it. And now he's at K-State. Everyone might talk about the loss of Dylan Edwards. I think that the combination of Rodney Fields and Harris, and you got another bad mamma jamma at running back too. If you have 5 people potentially in the backfield that all run 4.40s, I'm sorry, that's a problem. It is. It is.
Yeah. Yeah, Avery Johnson, I mean, they want to let him go loose this year. Colin Klein spoke on another podcast earlier this week and said that he wants to put a package in for him and not have to think, not have to, just act, just perform. And it's exciting stuff, what you're hearing on the Avery Johnson side. I love that you mentioned the running backs. I want to talk about that in just a minute, because one of those is a former Oklahoma State player, not the one you're comparing to in Carson, but that's an exciting piece on there as well. But let's talk about Mestemaker, though, before we move on to the next side. This is an interesting portal piece for sure. I think he's, dare I say, I mean, we're not sponsored by 2X's here, but dare I say he's the most interesting portal piece in the world when it comes to this past year in Drew Mestemaker, because what he did at North Texas was impressive. There's no doubt about that. When you hear about his experience in high school, wasn't even a starter, and then he finds himself getting recruited, and now all of a sudden he's a starting quarterback in a potential NFL draft prospect for a Big 12 team. He's so interesting, but I feel like the floor and ceiling could be absolutely wild, and that's why they make you feel like a wild card in the conference.
Yeah, it's not even the statistics, right? People are going to say, well, he did it at the G5 level, so 4,600 yards in the Big 12, 35 touchdowns. It's going to be different. Yeah, that's cool. But here's why everybody should be excited. Not only is Eric Morris a quarterback whisperer who found Cam Ward when nobody else wanted, because he ran a triple option kind of attack and nobody ever got to see Cam Ward throw the football except Eric Morris said, yeah, that is a guy. He's the guy who recruited John Mateer the heaviest. He's the dude who told Mike Leach to give Baker Mayfield a full scholarship. It's not even that, though. It's Jeff Christensen, the private quarterback coach that has worked with guys like Baker Mayfield, like Kirk Cousins, like Ryan Tannehill, that has said repeatedly that Drew Mestemaker mechanically is the best of the bunch and potentially the next Tom Brady. That's coming from Jeff Christensen, who is also currently, by the way, working with Ty Simpson, Dylan Raiola, and Fernando Mendoza. Fernando Mendoza and Drew Mestemaker are almost carbon copies of each other. They throw the same, they run the same, they move the same. They're both a little bit quirky. You could even consider it kind of nerdy to some degree. But when it comes to being a team captain, being a leader, they're dialed in. Our defensive players, that's what I said it was exciting. A lot of times, right, when you have conversations with the media, players will always say, yeah, Alan Bowman, he's a great veteran. He's a good leader inside the locker room. He's good in the huddle. Gary Rangel's learning the offense. Zane Flores is seeing things come together, whoever the quarterback is. And we call that coach speak, right? Players do that, and they're supposed to. It is different when you talk to the Oklahoma State defensive players now. When you mention Drew Mestemaker, they grin ear to ear, and you can tell they understand that they have a guy on the sideline that changes everything. And yeah, dude, it's a pretty crazy time at Oklahoma State. We've had some good quarterbacks, but somebody that could potentially be a number 1 overall pick that we have never had before. And I trust Jeff Christensen, who is literally one of the best in the business, and Eric Morris, who is the best in the business at finding quarterbacks that nobody else is looking for. And he's only a sophomore. That's helps.
The wild part. That is the wild part as well, is that he's only a sophomore and he chose to go to Oklahoma State. So you got to think that relationship is so good, as you mentioned as well, that he's probably not a risk to leave in the portal in
Correct.
years to come as well, which is
100%.
wild to say in times like we are sitting in right now in the world of college football. Before we move on, because there's plenty to talk about on today's show, this Lockdown College crossover, if you just look at some of the other names inside the Big 12, obviously Brendan Sorsby's still there, but now he's playing for Texas Tech. We'll see how that one works out. I'm a little skeptical, I'm not going to lie on that one. On BYU, you got Bear Bachmeier, who was arguably one of the best freshmen in all of college football last year. He definitely surprised the heck out of me. And then Devin Dampier of Utah returns, but of course there's a coaching change with the Utes, and then Connor Whiteman, another veteran for Houston. Those are the four that really stick out to me.
Noah Fafita is a beast.
Yeah.
Jalen Rager coming over from Arkansas State could potentially do some things up there, even though they're very depleted and according to their AD, they're poor. But yet there's a lot of exciting quarterbacks in the Big 12. And again, this is how it's supposed to be. This has always been a quarterback-driven league. When everybody was making fun of the Big 12 saying, well, they only win because they put up 50 points a game. Yeah, that's because we had a ton of NFL quarterbacks roaming the sidelines. And a lot of them are still in the NFL. Some are starters, some are number twos. But that's just a testament to what this league has always been. You could say what you want about the Big 12 and it being the little brother to other conferences, but typically when it came to the top quarterbacks in the country, the Big 12 oftentimes has a lot of them, and we did it again, and I cannot wait for it.
I know you were talking about future starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Will Howard, when you're thinking that. I know that's exactly what was coming through your mind for sure. Hey, continue speaking about these quarterbacks.
Throat punch you through this camera right now.
I love it. Continues talking about these quarterbacks, Mestemaker, Avery Johnson. You're trying to think about their success in 2026. When at least comes for Avery Johnson, one of the biggest reasons that he might be in success is because of a former Oklahoma State coach. Let's talk about that next, right here on this Lockdown College crossover. But first, this episode of Lockdown College crossover is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, if you've ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person, well, FanDuel is giving you a chance to turn in that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. I'm telling you, it's easy. You use the profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. That's right, the whole shebang. I'm talking flights, tickets, the whole experience. You can do that with FanDuel. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, whether that's the OKC Thunder, right? Maybe a little Oklahoma City Thunder action, winning the West or winning the whole thing, this is a perfect time to lock it in. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a full trip to the NBA Finals. Plan your game with FanDuel. It's the official sports betting partner of the NBA. This episode of Lockdown College crossover between Lockdown Kansas State and Lockdown Oklahoma State is also brought to you by TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. I'm telling you, you don't need that in your life. TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with local TurboTax experts in person or connect online. They handle everything. I'm talking from W-2s to self-employment forms, and they work to get you every deduction you deserve. And for a limited time, you can have your taxes done for you by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, well, you still have a few more days. Just file by February 28th. Take the taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. Welcome on back to Locked On Kansas State and Locked On Oklahoma State. It's a Locked On College crossover. We really appreciate you stopping by, and thanks for making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network in the world. If you want any more of this, maybe go ad-free for these shows, all you got to do is join the Everydayers Club. You can go to LockedOnOklahomaState.simplecast.com, supercast.com, or LockedOnKansasState.supercast.com, or check the show notes below for more information to check out the Everydayers Club. Let's talk some more college football here. Let's talk some more Big 12, and let's talk some more Kansas State, Oklahoma State ties. Because
I love it.
That's exactly where we're at right now. Avery Johnson, I think, is in for a huge 2026. One of the biggest reasons why he's there, obviously, Colin Klein, a new head coach. Christian Ellsworth, the quarterback coach, already have ties with him. But if you put that coach right in the middle, the new offensive coordinator, that's Sean Gleason. That's a name that I'm sure Oklahoma State fans know very well because he was the offensive coordinator in 2019. I can give you some stats. I can rattle them off. But, Cody, I'd like to hear it from you. What does Sean Gleason give to Kansas State, something that he did while being an Oklahoma State Cowboy in 2019?
It's more of, to some degree, what he didn't do, which we'll get to in a second. But yes, Sean Gleason was there for part of the emergence of Chuba Hubbard for the 2,000-yard Chuba Hubbard season. Sean Gleason did have his fingerprints in some of that. So the capabilities are clearly there. I'll tell you why I'm excited and why you should be excited from a K-State perspective. When we got Sean Gleason, and you went back and did your research, he was known as a genius for what he was doing at Princeton. That dude was running a 3-quarterback running back system where he had 3 quarterbacks that all ran and they all threw, and they were always in the backfield together. They had diamond formations. They did have running backs. So the perplexity that the defense had every time they broke the huddle was insanity, because you knew you had 3 dudes in the backfield. Sometimes they would do 2 of the quarterbacks and a running back, but there was always multiple guys in the backfield that could run it and would throw it. And again, you have to go back and look at the numbers. These guys were throwing for a couple thousand, running for 400, 500, 600 a piece. And then when he came to Oklahoma State, we thought potentially we could see some of that, right? You had a young Spencer Sanders coming in. You had Drew Brown, known as an athlete, coming over from Hawaii. And for whatever reason, we just we didn't do it. And then obviously there was a contentious relationship between Sean Gleason and Mike Gundy, which is why he left so quickly. And I don't know for certain, but what it appears as though happened is the system that Sean Gleason thought he was going to come in and run, Mike Gundy did not allow him to run. So Sean Gleason, instead of doing what he wanted to do and running his kind of system, he was forced to play the Gundy ball. And he felt like it was limiting, but he shifted all of that into a 2,000-yard running back. So even within adversity, he still has his hands in one of the best running backs in Oklahoma State history. And that is why, as a K-State fan, you should be pumped, because you have Avery Johnson. You have the dude that you shouldn't have, and Rodney Fields. And you also have Harris coming over from Oregon. You have a plethora of wide receivers that have the capability to take the top off. You're going to be a deadly team. And Sean Gleason combined with Colin Klein, I hate it, man. The offensive innovation and creativity that Mike Gundy would not allow for Gleason to do, Colin Klein will allow him to do. And he'll add different wrinkles in the running game to go along with it. Yeah, I think it's going to be fun, man. I think it's going to be a fun year in Manhattan, Kansas.
I love that. Speaking of, I want to just go throw it back, way back machine here, talking about those Princeton days. That quarterback, John Lovett, former Kansas City Chief. He made the Kansas City Chiefs in the NFL. So John Lovett had the opportunity to do that. He was the 2018 Ivy League Offensive Player of the Year, competed 66% of his passes, 18 touchdowns in that season that you mentioned. And then Hubbard, obviously All-American, consensus All-American, led the nation rushing that 2,000 yards. Yep. But the other numbers that I got here before we move on, when he was the offensive coordinator, Oklahoma State ranked 17th in the nation in rushing offense and in total 21st in total offense, 35th in scoring offense. He put 32.5 points per game up as a dominant running team inside the Big 12.
Yep.
That's really impressive. And that makes me really excited knowing that Avery Johnson finally has weapons around him, and he has the coaching staff too.
And again, Sean Gleason did all of that while being extremely limited. I was one of those individuals that hated to see Sean Gleason go because we had the pieces. And imagine even the next year, right? When Spencer Sanders really kind of was able to get his feet out from underneath him, what that could have looked like under Sean Gleason. We unfortunately just didn't get that experience. And yeah, I'm a little bit jealous if you can't tell by my reaction. I hate the fact that Rodney Fields is there because it's crazy to let that dude go. Like, I'll call a spade a spade. It's insane. I love Katie Batman Jones. I like getting Trey Page. But they're not Rodney Fields. And Rodney Fields only got to play in like 8 games. And in those 8 or 9 games, it took us to the last 5 before we had a competent O-line. Let's just keep it a buck, as they say. Rodney Fields did more with less than almost anybody else on that roster. And we couldn't make it happen. We talked last time about agents and how important they are. I think that it's crucial that Rodney Field's agent probably has a wonderful relationship with Colin Klein, and that's massive for y'all moving forward. Yeah, I think Chris Kleiman maybe could have had a couple more really quality years in him, but in the arms race of college football, NIL, portal era, I think you guys hit a home run.
Rodney Fields, 124 carries, 614 yards last year, 1 touchdown, average 5 yards a carry. You put that with the Jay Harris, the Chris Carson comps that you gave him earlier that's coming over from Oregon, and of course with Joe Jackson, who broke records for Kansas State last year, breaking Darren Sproles' records of most rushing yards in a game, had 600 and something yards in his final 2 games, and just those final 2 games between Utah and Colorado was averaging over 8 yards a carry. This running back room is going to be really fun to watch. Who replaces Rodney Fields for Oklahoma State?
I think it's going to be Katie Batman Jones. I mean, I really do. I mean, we have some other pieces coming in, like Iowa Day coming over from JMU, who was a big time guy at North Texas before this last JMU season. And you have Trey Page coming up from down the road. We've got some contributors that I think, could be mainstays in the offense. But at the end of the day, I think Katie Batman Jones is just way too good to not fulfill that Rodney Fields role. By the way, I will say, since we're giving some O-State comps, why I'm mad, okay, you have Rodney Fields, you have Jay Harris, we had Chris Carson, and guess who is his lightning partner? Justice Hill. That's what your backfield could look like with a quarterback that's faster than both of them. It's not fair. I don't like it.
I love it. So I guess we're going to have to just agree to disagree on that one. Here's maybe a place where we will agree or maybe disagree, but either way, let's have some fun discourse to end this conversation. Let's see who can keep up with Texas Tech in the Big 12. They obviously were the best team in the conference last year. Who can keep up with them? Is it one of us? Can one of our teams make it to Arlington? Is that a long shot? Let's talk about that next, right here on this Locked On College Crossover.
I'm Kalia Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. South Carolina rolled past Ole Miss 85-48 to clinch a share of the SEC regular season title and lock down the number 1 seed in the conference tournament. The Gamecocks extended their win streak over Ole Miss to 21 straight. UCLA dominated Wisconsin 80-60 to secure its first outright Big Ten regular season championship in program history. The Bruins improved to 27-1 overall and remain unbeaten in conference play. And number 12 TCU stormed back from a 13-point fourth quarter deficit to beat Iowa State 80-73. The Horned Frogs now sit alone atop the Big 12 standings and are 1 win away from clinching another regular season conference crown. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts that same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
Mazda's a beast, but so is Indeed. Whenever you're hiring, you don't just want some warm body that's going to walk in and take a spot. When deadlines are stacking up and the inbox is overflowing, you've got to get that position filled. When the pressure's on, you need the right hire. This is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed, sponsored jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for, the right skills, the right experience, even the right location. So you're not just hoping the right dude or wonderful lady stumbles across the post. Here's the stat that says all of it, right? In this time that we've been talking, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you are hiring, spend less time searching, more time interviewing the candidates who check all of the boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Spend less time worrying about it and trying to figure out who's the right fit and where the right pieces go. That stress is unnecessary. Spend less time to get more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show, and obviously our friends at Locked On Wildcats, Kansas State Nation, will get the $75 sponsored job credit to help your job get the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about it here. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. If you need to hire, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs.
Well, I know Kansas State needs to hire a basketball coach, but that is a different conversation for a different day. On the Big 12 side, hey, Oklahoma State keeping their bubble alive. Might as well just keep that conversation going. Bubble's gonna be fun. Selection Sunday, only a few weeks away. But this is a conversation for college football on today's episode. Locked On College crossover between Locked On Oklahoma State, Locked On Kansas State. If you haven't hit subscribe because you're getting a great content here from myself and Cody. We bring that to you every single day. Every dayers, we really thank you. So thank you so much. Texas Tech, 12-2 last year, 8-1 in the conference. They laid an egg in the college football playoffs. I think that's fair to say. I don't think that's I don't think that's breaking the bank by me giving a hot take on this day. But either way, I think that they are still probably the favorite. If there was a preseason poll for the media, I'm sure Locked On, I'm sure we're going to do one, but I'm sure the media won't do it again. But we are at Locked On Podcast Network because we did it last year as well. And we were terrible, but we did it. I think they're going to be the favorites. Can Oklahoma State or Kansas State compete with it? Now, we don't play Texas Tech. And do you? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Do you play?
Yeah,
Okay,
we get them in Boone Pickens Stadium at the end of the season. It's like
how does that feel? Oh, at the end of the season,
it's like third to last game of the year. Yeah,
that could be interesting.
That
could be very interesting because you could maybe figure it all out by then.
Yeah,
and they'll no longer be Mean Green players. They'll definitely be Cowboys by the time that's rolled around. Eric Morris can get maybe that quarterback guru, the quarterback whisperer finally done. Mestemaker might finally be that wild card that turns into maybe a Heisman Trophy candidate. Could you see that? Is that a newspaper headline at some point this season potentially for Drew Mestemaker?
100%. I mean, just the national conversations about Drew Mestemaker do not indicate he came from North Texas. That's the thing. Whenever these NFL scouts and analysts are doing their evaluations of Drew Mestemaker, which is precisely why we had to fend off all of the best schools in the country in the SEC and the ACC and the Big Ten. Drew Mestemaker literally could have probably gone to 98.9% of schools in America and been the day one starter because of that Jeff Christensen conversation and some of the guys that he's worked with. If that dude is verbally saying this is the next Tom Brady and the NFL scouts are seeing something comparable, this is a legitimate Heisman conversation. And when you have one of those guys, it changes the complexity of the entire operation, the entire team. And again, as like we talked about, the defensive players, they are so ever-loving pumped because there is no comparison, no disrespect, but there's zero comparison to Zane Flores and Alan Bowman and Milwaukee Smith and Gary Rangel. There just isn't. Right? This is a completely different level. The players that have stayed in the locker room at Oklahoma State for the last few years, they're seeing that this dude is way different than anything else we've ever seen. And when you have that guy, it's hard not to be confident.
Gotta love that. Out of the other teams, because obviously we've talked about it in nauseum about Oklahoma State potentially being the X factor of the conference and probably making the biggest jump, maybe in all of college football, going from not winning a conference game in 2 years to being 1-11 last year and potentially being at least a bowl team next year, I think is more than fair to say. Out of all the other
if we're
teams,
not a bowl team, something went disastrously wrong, and I
completely agree.
Our donors are going to lose their ever-loving minds. I firmly believe with the amount of money and investment that we've put in, that everybody's expecting a 7 to 8 win season. That is the bottom line expectation. And when you have all of these potential NFL dudes that are on the top 100 transfer portal list, that should be the expectation. And for 18 in the last 20 years, that was the expectation.
So when you have a riser in a conference, you obviously have to have somebody who falls in that place. Who's going to be one of those teams that were maybe sitting towards the top that you believe is just, you're not high on their stock this year?
Well, I mean, the obvious answer is Iowa State. So I will refrain from jumping into the low-hanging fruit. Listen,
I don't mind Iowa State slander, and I don't think my everydayers would mind it, but you can continue. Go ahead.
Well, I don't think Colorado is going to be that good, buddy.
Well, Colorado was 3-9. I don't know if you can continue to qualify, but I mean, Iowa State was 8-4 last year. That's a good
okay. So
caller.
From the top end, now I could see somebody maybe making a fall. Maybe BYU, but making a fall for them is what, 3 losses? And
No,
I only
maybe.
say that, like, I believe in BYU. If I were to say who are my preseason Big 12 Arlington and I've never even thought about this yet, but if
No,
I
it's
were
way
to
too
just
early.
throw it out, I think they would have to be in it with Tech. It would have to be BYU Tech, but the last few teams that had a lot of returning starters did not do very good. And Oklahoma
true.
State's one of them. Kansas
is very
State,
true.
you just went through the same thing we went through 2 years ago. It's like when you win 19 games and you have 90% of your roster coming back, you think you're going to own the world. And for Oklahoma State and Kansas State, when those scenarios happen, we flopped miserably. So I don't think BYU is going to do that, but they're now in that position, right? They're now in that position where they have a 10-11 win team and they are returning 85 to 89% of them. So if history in the Big 12 for them is any indication, they could have a slip up.
I agree. I completely agree. I know one thing for certain is that it's been a very long time. If you take out the teams that left for the SEC, it's been a very long time. I knew the stat at one point. I think I talked about it before the Big 12 championship game last year. A team, the repeat as Big 12 champions, I want to say it's been over a decade. I think it's been even longer. I think it's been a very long time. I feel like Colorado is the name, and it's been a very long time for a team that's gone back-to-back Big 12 championships. If you don't count the Oklahomas and Texases.
I was going to say, you did it a few times,
yeah,
unfortunately.
If you don't count the teams that left for the SEC, it's been a very long time for a Big 12 team that's currently here to repeat. So something to keep in mind as we continue on this fun offseason. Cody
Yet
Stovall,
another reason why we need Nebraska back in the Big 12, buddy.
Do we?
Yes, we do. We do.
Okay. All right. I'm going to leave that one as your opinion, not mine, on this episode.
Oh,
Thanks for listening to this Locked On College crossover. Like and subscribe wherever you're listening, either Locked On Oklahoma State or Locked On Kansas State. We'll see you back here next time, right here on this Locked On College crossover. Nebraska, really?
I think we need it, man.
I don't know. I'll take a big 8.